Let me say something that either might take a huge weight off of your shoulders or make you uncomfortable enough to lean in. If you think the reason you haven't bought multifamily yet is because you don't have enough money, you're asking the wrong question. And that question is quietly costing you years. Not because money doesn't matter, it absolutely does, but because in small to mid-sized multifamily, money is almost never the first thing that unlocks a deal. Structure is. Most people don't get stuck because they're broke. They get stuck because they're waiting for more savings, waiting for better credit, waiting for rates to come down, waiting for confidence to show up, just flat out waiting. And here's the dangerous part. Waiting feels responsible. You tell yourself you're being smart, you tell yourself things like I'm preparing, or you tell yourself things like you're trying to avoid mistakes. But while you're waiting, something subtly happens. You stop building experience, you stop building momentum, and the idea of actually buying your first or your next multifamily property starts to feel way heavier instead of clear. Meanwhile, operators in the same exact market, often with similar resources, are still buying deals. That gap isn't luck. It's understanding how funding actually works. Before we go any further, I want to give you some context so you understand where this perspective actually comes from. I didn't start in multifamily with deep pockets, partners, or a network handing me deals. I wasn't syndicating, I wasn't out there raising institutional money, and I wasn't waiting for banks to approve me for some master plan. I started small. I focused on small to mid-sized multifamily, and I built everything one deal at a time by learning how to find deals that weren't obvious, funding when the numbers really didn't look good or perfect on paper, and then actually running them like a business. Some deals involved banks, some involved private money, some involved seller terms. But I can tell you one thing, none of them started with me ever asking, how much money do I have? They started with understanding control, risk, and structure. And that's what I want to unpack with you today. Here's the belief that quietly freezes more people than almost anything else in multifamily. I just need more money before I can buy deals. That belief sounds mature, it almost sounds disciplined, and it really sounds safe. But in practice, it does something extremely dangerous. It moves the finish line because there's always a reason to wait. You're close, but not quite there. Your credit's improving, but not perfect. Rates feel high and the market feels uncertain. So instead of buying, you prepare. You analyze deals you'll never offer on. You build spreadsheets instead of experience, and you plan instead of actually executing. And you know what? The longer that goes on, the more intimidating buying multifamily actually becomes. Real operators break out of this loop by realizing something most people don't want to hear. Waiting does not reduce risk. Understanding structure does. Most people ask, how much money do I need? That question shuts everything down before it really opens up, because the answer is almost always more than I have. Operators ask a different question. How can I control this deal and what structure makes it possible? That one question changes everything. Now you're not starting with your limitations, you're starting with the deal. You look at what's broken, you look at what's underperforming, you look at what the seller actually cares about. You look at where risk exists and how it can be reduced. Instead of asking capital to believe in you, you show capital how uncertainty is removed from the deal. That's why two people can look at the same exact deal. One says there's no way this gets funded. The other one gets it done. The difference isn't money, it's how they see structure. Here's something that took me a while to understand, and honestly, I only understood it after being inside real deals. Money doesn't actually fund deals. Structure does. When someone with capital looks at a deal, they're not emotionally invested in the way you are. They're not excited about the upside. They're quietly asking themselves one question over and over again. Where does this break? What happens if rents don't move as fast as expected? What happens if rehab takes longer and it costs more money? What happens if the operator underestimates how hard this thing is to run? Structure is what answers those questions. If the structure shows predictable income, realistic execution, and room to absorb mistakes, money becomes available, sometimes faster than you even expect. But when structure is weak, money doesn't save you. Adding more cash just props up something fragile. That's why you see people with far more money struggling while someone else with less capital keeps moving forward. They're not reckless. They've learned how to design deals that reduce uncertainty instead of hoping uncertainty doesn't show up. Once you see funding this way, you stop obsessing over how much money you have and you start obsessing over how clean the deal actually is. Let me pause here for a second because this is actually the moment people think, okay, this makes sense to me, but I don't know how to actually structure deals like this. This is exactly why I put together a free masterclass for you. In that training, I break down how small to mid-sized multifamily deals are actually found, how they get funded without waiting years, and how they're run like real businesses, not side hustles. This video explains why money isn't the first problem. The masterclass shows you how to build deals capital says yes to. You can click the link to the free masterclass in the description below. Now, let's keep going. Most people hear no from a bank and shut everything down. They assume the deal's dead. They assume they're not ready. They assume they need to go back and prepare more. Operators here know very differently. They hear, this doesn't fit this box. Banks don't fund deals, they fund criteria. When something doesn't fit that box, the answer is no, even if the deal makes sense in the real world. Once you understand that, no stops feeling final for you. It becomes information. Sometimes the deal needs different terms. Sometimes the timeline is wrong. Sometimes capital needs to come from someone who understands assets instead of spreadsheets. This is where most people give up, not because the deal is impossible, but because they only know one path forward. Operators don't panic when the first door doesn't open. They look for the door that fits the deal they're actually standing in front of. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Waiting for funding to feel easy is comfortable, but it's expensive. For every year you wait, costs change, lending shifts, and confidence erodes. Deals start to feel heavier, decisions start to feel riskier, and momentum disappears. Operators don't wait until understanding magically appears. They build understanding by doing. The first deal is hard, the second deal is clear, the third starts to feel familiar. Waiting doesn't make that process easier. It just delays it. Funding isn't a standalone topic. It connects to a deal selection, it's going to connect to your buy box, and then it's going to connect to your operations. Bad structure doesn't usually show up on day one. It shows up months later as stress, tight cash flow, and forced decisions. Good structure shows up as flexibility, room to adjust, room to breathe, room to solve problems instead of react to them. Operators think about funding before they're under contract because they know they're not just buying a property, they're buying a set of future decisions. Structure determines how those decisions feel. If this video challenged the idea that money is your biggest obstacle, here's what I need you to do next. First, click the link to the free masterclass in the description below. That's where I walk through the full framework for finding, funding, and running small to mid-sized multifamily deals the right way. Second, subscribe to the channel. Everything here is about helping you think and act like an operator, not a speculator. And third, leave a comment and tell me what part of funding deals feels most confusing or intimidating for you right now. I read every comment that you guys post, and future videos come directly from those questions. So until the next video, guys, I'll catch you in the masterclass.